Hello, hello.
How are you doing? We're here, Luz and David, at Evolving Education. We're going to have today another webinar of Evolving Education webinars with Kikao Cultures, specifically with Michelle Taffy. It's one of their team members, and she's going to be telling us about how they're promoting project-based learning in Kenya, connecting with the Sustainable Development Goals, talking a lot about global citizenship.
Inviting her now. Fantastic. Yay!
Well, this is like the quickest connection we have had in any webinar, Michelle.
It's the first time I'm having like a live video on Instagram, so I wasn't really sure what I was doing, but I'm glad we've gone through, so we're having this conversation. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It
working.
worked fantastically.
Yeah, usually we have to, just make time here for a while until people manage to get through. But it's great to see you. And yeah, we've met Michelle in some different forums where people are rethinking education and how to increase support children's creativity and invention. And I was amazed by the project that she's running at Kikao Cultures in Kenya. And we wanted to share more with everyone about your work and what are the things that we can learn about how to connect sustainable development goals with the project-based learning and with different things that connect kind of global and local levels of society.
Fantastic. But yeah, super quick for people that don't know us. This is Lud and David here from Evolving Education, and we are researching and democratizing the tools to empower children to take control of their learning and then their lives.
Yeah. And one of the ways in which we do that is hosting these weekly webinars with education pioneers. So if you'd like to know more about that and you're watching this, you can follow us or subscribe to our Instagram channel, and then you'll know more about these different experiences from all around the world. But we're gonna start with Michelle and getting to know a bit more about. I would love to know always about how these projects emerge, because there's always a need, a question, some thirst for change that drives the creation of new social ventures, because it is a social venture that wants to have a positive impact in your community. So please tell us a little bit about you and about Kikao.
Well, thank you for that introduction, David, and nice to meet you, Liz. We haven't met before, so it's great to meet you on camera. So, I'm an educator at Kikao Cultures, but that's a bit of an extension of what I do, working with young people. I also work in the entertainment industry, and it was just a fantastic bridge, the merge between education and entertainment, bringing together the concept of edutainment through Kikao Cultures. Kikao Cultures is a concept that was developed by an 11-year-old girl today, but she was 9 when she thought of setting up Kikao Cultures as a program to educate her peers and young people under the age of 18 about the Sustainable Development Goals. And her target was to have this program have a worldwide reach. Well, the question would come, what happened? Why did she think of this? Um, she was inspired by her brother, who is a young change maker as well and a young global citizen. When he had been doing work towards meeting the sustainable goal, 4, quality education, he set up a project to make sure that his peers, again, get to enjoy going to school, to engaging in a sport that is widely loved, football, and through setting up a football team in one of the remote parts of Kenya, in the coast of Kenya, known as Kwale County. He set up a football team to make sure that young people there were able to enjoy going to school, but also were accountable for their movement in terms of this area um, had faced previously low turnout at schools, despite the government having offered free primary and secondary school education. And so the question came was, what would motivate these kids and what would make their parents see the need to make sure that the kids go to school? So that's how the football team was formed. Now, fast forward with the work that the young man had been doing, which he continues to do, he got nominated and recognized worldwide for the work that he'd been doing. And this sparked conversation about around the sustainable goals for these two siblings. It's a boy and a girl. The boy is 14, and the girl is 11 now. So they were just conversing about the Sustainable Development Goals, and they developed interest about it over time since before the young man created his project. And when they took it outside to their peers and even some of the adults in their environment, they found that not too many people have a reach with the Sustainable Development Goals. It's something that they've probably heard about in through media when you talk about the United Nations, but it's not something that is a topic that could be spoken about. So how does that relate to me was the question. So the ones who knew about it, the ones who didn't know about it, didn't really like. It's one of those things that I don't know about it. So what is it? But so she decided, look, she is learning about it, about the goals, learning about what people are doing around the world to meet the goals. And the thing is that there is a deadline, and we want to meet the deadline and not leave anybody behind. But clearly, everybody she's been speaking to is already been left behind. So how does she make sure that she brings everybody on board the bus? And so she started Kikao Cultures. So being part of putting that together and working with the young people to put their concepts into reality. And it Kikao Culture centers on 4 goals, which are quality education, which is that is the model and the cause for which the program was built. There is sustainable cities and communities, which is goal 11, because everybody around the world can relate to it. We all come from a city or a community. Whether it's sustainable is a question up for discussion and deeper review. Then there is life below water. Everybody can relate with having either interest or coming from a community that is along the shores of a water body, whether it's in a river or a lake or the ocean, or the seas. And finally, goal 17, partnership for the goals. So that is what we
So really,
at Kikao Cultures.
really inspirational how it comes out of children's intentions to want to have a positive impact in their communities and wanting to change things there. I think that tells a lot about the power that children have to make a change in their societies in the present. Because I think always that we think about education, it's always about preparing the children for the future, for a future that we don't know, in the way that we think that we might prepare them. Well, Kikao Cultures is an example of how children can already make a change in the present, starting projects like this one, and having very intention of saying, no, I want to improve education, I want to connect with the sustainability, and I want to work with communities. I started doing things that might seem simple, like building a football team, but in the reality, when it comes together to bringing all those people and making sure that things are happening and everyone is engaged, it's a big challenge.
Yeah, and also, well, just creating the awareness of the Sustainable Development Goals is a big deal, because I think that sometimes, yeah, what you said before, like we don't know about them, and then when there is no awareness, then there is not like that. It's not so easy to get engaged if you don't know that there is a problem around it. But yeah, once that you are aware, then it's on you to take action and to decide to do something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And something, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that aspect, about how to communicate the Sustainable Development Goals, or how has been your experience with them? Because in a way, they're framed like they pretty much cover absolutely everything that it's on Earth, because there's so many of them that they cover every single topic, and also how to communicate in a way that people see that there is an action to take, because I think they can remain a little bit theoretical if we just share those keywords and so on. But actually, what can you do? That's a bigger conversation to have. How has it been your experience sharing about sustainable development goals and connecting youth and children with them?
All right, so that is another amazing question. The Sustainable Development Goals are all over. If you search for it, the information is readily available, right? And it's been packaged in so many different ways, depending on who's packaging it. And so it's just up to the person searching to find the context of which they want to relate to it. But one of the biggest gaps that I have experienced is that there is not too much. Um, there's limited reach and engagement with the Sustainable Development Goals when it comes to children. And this is debatable, of course. Why am I saying this? Is because there are organizations such as World's Largest Lesson that have taken it upon themselves to teach about the Sustainable Development Goals, and they're doing an amazing job. They have incredible reach in terms of the numbers of kids that and around the world who know about the Sustainable Development Goals. But the model that we at Kikao Cultures have taken is to make the Sustainable Development Goals a lifestyle. So you not only learn about what the goals are, but from a perspective of a 7-year-old who is one of the youngest in our demographic. We also work with 5-year-olds, but I'm talking about 7 because that is the age within which we work. So 7 to 17-year-olds. From a perspective of a 7-year-old, they already have some sort of perspective about the world, and they have some thoughts about what it is that they like and what they don't like. And so the Sustainable Development Goals then becomes a bit of a direction for them that their thoughts are in the right direction, but they then get a chance to grow in this knowledge about the goal of their choice. So when they grow in this knowledge, then they're also able to practice the implementation of the goal through project-based learning. And so it is more implementation than theoretic learning. So then when I talk about having a sustainable development goal lifestyle or a lifestyle for the 17 global goals, then that's where Kikao Cultures comes in. And that is the mode of practice for us at Kikao Cultures. Of course, all this done in a way that is not too complicated for the young people to understand, because already, even for adults, the Sustainable Development Goals are, that's a topic for world leaders or movers and shakers. It has nothing to do with me, the common citizen. But I differ because for the Sustainable Goals to be met, if you look at just one goal, let's look at no poverty, for instance. We all know and have encountered somebody who's facing some point of their lives where they face difficulties, and the difficulties would that cause poverty a lot of times are related with finances. Now, at some point, many of us have faced situations where we no longer have the same financial flow that we did. And a lot of times it may end up that we have been ourselves or know of people who have faced a period of their lives where they are living in poverty, whether they admit it or not. Poverty is simply defined as a situation where you're not able to cater for your basic human needs um, to be able to survive. And so if we look at it from a realistic perspective and not the theoretical view, then it's easy for us to see, okay, so these situations do happen. So how do I become more aware, how do I become more responsible about how I use my finances? How do I get a young person to be more responsible about how they look at finances? When you talk about incomes and expenditure, their spending patterns, how do you get them more aware of how they can direct their spending, or what they can direct their savings towards, so that they are more meaningful in their existence, that kind of thing. You see, it's more realistic and more tangible.
Yeah, way more, because as you said, that no poverty is like, oh yeah, we all want no poverty, but now
How
you have
does it
just mentioned
translate?
exactly what can we start doing today, working with children to walk towards that goal.
And change start with each of us. Like I know that sometimes it's like it seems really hard to change the world because it's like it's this theory and so complex, but the change start with changing our own behavior and starting to live by what we say, and then being a role model. Then more people will catch it out, and then little by little change will start happening. But we have to be the first ones in that we in that role, no? Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I love that you're using project-based learning as well to make it actionable, dynamic, fun, and something that actually can derive into real meaningful learning, because we learn when we learn by doing, not just through a textbook or memorizing what are the 17 SDGs. That's very easy to forget and really with no connection to our life. But if we do a real project, something that is in our community, that about something that we can see and in collaboration. And I saw in your website you have some key elements for a project-based learning success, and I love that, because you have there so many good points about autonomy and choice and collaboration and self-evaluation. I think was another one of them. So yeah, I would just love to know a bit more about your experience with introducing PBL, whether you brought them in schools that maybe didn't know about that concept yet, or whether they were used to it and you just redirected it towards the SDGs. I don't know. How has it been, the experience?
All right, so with Kikao Cultures, we've been around for 4 years now in operation, and only now, 2023, a better part of the last quarter of 2022 and into 2023, have we gone into the ground. One, because when we started, it was just before COVID, so we were just getting things in motion and whatnot. And then when we started picking up, it was COVID, so there wasn't that much in-person interaction. And then after that, there was also, we had general elections in Kenya. So, during general elections, and my country is very, very politically influenced, so to speak. Like, if it's politics and then the rest of the things. So, because that's just how we think. And to be honest, a lot of things that happen in politics affect our daily lives, whether we want to admit it or not. And so that slowed down the in-person interactions. But this year, we're having more of in-person interactions, and we're actually working towards um, having more um, interaction both locally and internationally. Internationally, we're looking at having the World Festival of Young Innovators, where we get young people who have been doing activities and projects to meet, come together, together with educators and friends of education, to be able to see how can we spread the sustainable development goals, and how do we activate and actualize the innovations that young people have come up with or continue to come up with. How do we make sure that as educators we are empowering this generation going forward, to be more aware about their existence and live purposefully. Um,
Mhm.
in Kenya, so to answer your question about being able to go to schools and whatnot, yes, we have done some rounds but that was cut short because of the two elements of COVID and the elections. But right now we are past the election phase. We have a bit of a hiccup going on in Kenya right now. If you watch the news, you'll probably see a bit of um, the opposition not being very supportive of the government and disputing the elections and whatnot. So you may see some violence and all that, but those are pockets of incidents. However, it's things that we will get over this hurdle and be in a position where it's safe to say that the rest of the world can then come to Kenya. But for for my everyday life, I'm able to go into town. I'm able to have meetings to push forward. I'm able to meet young people and interact with them and get their thoughts and feedback, as well as delve into projects around the Sustainable Development Goals.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Yeah, and I agree that every time you put on the news, it's way more about what is noisy, and there's definitely a lot more to celebrate and to be happy for than the bad news that it's the only things that are communicated, pretty much.
And you have mentioned before about global citizenship, and I'm really curious about how to combine the local identity with global citizenship in education.
Yeah. And this is something that we're very aware that's being a key drawback, I think, of education globally, that we have thought about education as something that if it is developed by the brightest minds in Cambridge or Oxford or Boston or something like this, then we can just push it around the world without respecting any cultural diversity or community or anything or history whatsoever, and everyone will be happy and all the children will be fine. But through traveling and meeting lots of people in different countries like India, Mexico, and many other places that are questioning that status quo of education and how it has been imposed in many cases by external powers and nowadays through different kinds of organizations that while they are aiming to do a lot of good, at the end are bringing an external model of education to a country that where it hasn't originated or is not connecting necessarily with the culture. So we're really interested into that dynamic of how to support the natural evolution and growth of the local culture at the same time as making the most out of the global richness of connections that we can have nowadays, as we are doing right now, connecting from Kenya and Mexico. Yeah, so I don't know, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Wow, I like talking about global citizenship. First of all, for as long as I can remember, I didn't like to identify as a Kenyan particularly. I think it's because I felt that I'm a human, and so that's as basic as it gets. I'm a human, and I'm able to interact with any other human and respect them, despite of where they come from, whether their race, their ethnicity, and their background. I was also, I have also been very fortunate and very strategically involved in international programs, whether through schooling, through the works that I have done and been involved with in my previous engagements, bringing me up until this point in my life today. And so I look at myself as a global citizen. And who is a global citizen? A global citizen is somebody who understands that they are a key component.
We might have lost
connection. Not sure whether it's us or Michelle.
It might be her.
Or us. We never know yet.
Let's see. Well, just Yeah.
She just dropped from the call. Okay, now that we're having like the deepest conversation of the of the webinar.
The hard question.
And we would love to hear from you, from the people that are listening as well. What are your thoughts about local identity and global citizenship? This is a really important issue in education, and we would love to hear from you. What's been your experience with kind of globalization versus local traditions and customs and culture?
Yeah, because I guess that there's a important thing there, and it's the definition of success that has been established somehow. And then there is this path that you have to follow, and it's really strict. If you go a little bit out, then you are not successful. And then in that through following that path, sometimes local identity get lost because that there's no space for that in that definition of success. And then what's the impact on local communities on when people go in that direction without really questioning where they are going, because it's something that has been socially accepted.
Yeah, let's see if Michelle can join us, because she was also mentioning about some issues about schools in rural areas where the children didn't go, and that's a good situation. We're questioning, well, how relevant is that education that is provided in those schools to those children? Exactly. Of course, there's going to be benefits of learning English as a way to communicate with people anywhere else in the world, but how connected or disconnected is the education that they're receiving there from their whole life and their community, and how much it pushes them out of their own communities by going to that schooling environment.
We are having her
Michelle
back.
is joining now.
Yes, fantastic.
Hey, we have you back.
I think it's network, because I could see when I was talking a bit of a connection circle, but then I found that I was watching, so I didn't know what happened.
That's all right. And I think it stopped right when you were about to say something amazing.
Yeah. So if I can just pick it up, I was talking about the when you identify as a global citizen, if you understand that your skills and your experience and your value transcends beyond the borders of where you would like to identify, whether religious, national, and it also transcends beyond your confine of cultural practices, and that the person that you are, which is a mix of all these combined, then has something to offer to the rest of the world, and that you have discovered what it is and you are able to offer it and still be able to relate and connect, and not disconnect with the rest of the world. What I find is that yes, I am Kenyan, born Kenyan, lived in Kenya for a big part of my life. But today, just as we are connected through miles and miles and seeing each other on a screen and able to have this very important information. And there are a lot of viewers who are watching this from the rest of the world. And so that is the beauty of what technology has done, and that is also the beauty of what global citizenship has brought, that we're able to also discover the intersection of our existence and then see how to make it better in our own way, in our own communities.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I would love to see more of are reflection spaces for communities to think about this important topic. And one of the reasons I think it's important, not just in education, but for the whole community, everyone, it's because of all the many influences and all the ways in which we perceive the external world, like mostly through TVs or TV series, films, and so on. We see realities that are usually presented coming out of a few spots from the world, right? For instance, Hollywood is a big film industry, right? and then that reality might not be related whatsoever with what we live in our lives or what we see around us, and that can make us think that that's the ideal of how a successful life is or a good life is, and can very easily push us subconsciously, unconsciously, to devalue our own culture and our own way of living. Because what we perceive through the media and through different ways that is the great way to live, it's a different one.
But it's one way to live. There are many other ways to live. I guess that for me it's really important the fact of having that diversity, like a world in which many worlds fit. Like there is possibility for each different local community to exist with her own identity, and share those values and share those and connect beyond those borders, and having that beautiful learning space from each other, but not like one way, one mainstream. There are many streams. And I think that that's really, or through the traveling, that's one thing that I found super beautiful, connecting with that diversity of human beings, of ways of life, of everything. And then in those terms, it's really important to question what things are coming, like what things are we being stimulated with, and questioning, do I agree with this or do I not? And start making that exercise of questioning that status quo to define how you want it to be yourself.
Yeah.
No? Because if not, it's really easy to get carried around. Oh, you should have this thing and this thing and this thing to be happy. You have to have this and this and this, and maybe that's not aligned with who you are and who you want to be. But we may carry by those inputs that society give us.
Yeah. And in the field of education, I think it's pretty common for many of us that want to improve education to kind of push that agenda that we are not even aware of. And it's coming from the West and from the last 200 years of history of industrialization and the use of technology. And we need to question, considering that human beings have been roaming the world for what, about 10,000? I don't remember right now how many years, but thousands. I don't know if it's 500,000 or anyways, a very big number. What makes us feel so confident that the style of living and then the way of living that we have developed in the last 200 years or so in a specific corner of the world, it's so magnificent that it's worth spreading all around humanity without allowing any traces of any other ways of living and relating with each other.
Yeah.
Because we call it globalization, but it's really westernization, I guess.
I agree with a lot of the points that you're saying, and that brings us back to the 17 global goals. The 17 global goals realizes that the state of things before 2015 when it started, we can take it back to 2010 when it was the Millennium Development Goals, that there was a lot of divide that had been caused, which was causing a lot of problems, a lot of which are still existent in the world today. But the reality is that today we're able to speak more and we're able to communicate a lot better, whereas we would initially possibly use letters that would take months and months. Now it's just by the touch of a button, we're able to speak, and by the touch of another button, this is going to go worldwide. And by the touch of another button, we will have feedback on what people think about what it is that we are talking about. So I am grateful for the changes that humanity has been able to achieve from back then till today in terms of technology and how we look at things and how we relate with each other. However, there are still very key parts that we have kind of left behind that we should have carried with us. Things such as taking care of our environment. things such as taking care of our own um, communities, you know, how we relate, how do you talk to your neighbor, how do you keep tabs with if they're well or not, how do you build that community where you all feel safe in that community, how do you make sure that you are able to relate to an outsider who's just joined your community so that they too can feel like they belong and they too can bring or take away something that they can learn from the community setting, that kind of thing. Those are some of the things that we've kind of left behind, which the global goals is taking us back to. And that's why I talk about the 17 global goals lifestyle. If we talk about issues such as gender equality, I like to tell my young students that yes, there is a talk about gender equality, and the way it's been pushed out, it kind of tends to be about the girls should be given more access, more leeway to education, and that is all well and good because the girl child for a very long time was not given or did not see, you know, that comes from our parents, our grandparents, but the society did not see how the female, the girl child, could integrate into modernization. But today, this is a whole different topic. I mean, women are driving countries, women are driving, women are pilots, women are engineers, some of the, you know, most renowned engineers. Women are educators, such as ourselves, Luz and I. Women are doing all sorts of things, and these are things that are beyond the traditional expectation of a woman is a caregiver, a woman is to be a mother and then a caregiver, and then that's pretty much it. But in doing all these things, we're just moving with the times, and moving with the times also expanding our role, because a lot of the things that have happened in modernization, just with a word or a perspective from a female perspective, then it ends up being a lot better. So I say that gender equality is more about reducing the stereotype as opposed to it being a girl child versus boy child, or um, uh, female versus male, or women being better than men, because I'm of the view that I'm human. Now, devoid of my gender, I still have to have some value that I bring to the community that I live in, whether it's the household within which I live or whether it's the community within which I serve. Um, it's beyond my gender. I shouldn't have excuses because I'm female. Neither will I accept excuses from a person who is male, because now we live in the information age that has cut all borders, because there's information about doing all sorts of things that is out there. You just gotta want to learn about it, and you will get to know about it from top professionals. So I like to say that things like gender equality um, are beyond discrimination. They are an issue of connection, and connection and realizing the value of who you are as an individual and how you fit in, and then how you add value to the next person, and then the next person, and then to the rest of the community.
Mm-hmm. It came to my mind there. Yep. Sorry. I thought that you were going to say something. It came to my mind a next story. When we were in China, we decided to climb a mountain. It was 3 days. It was raining crazy. It was an awful experience. We suffered a lot. I got bitten by a monkey. It was really a disaster. And when we arrived back to the city, there was this man that we were interviewing, and we told him the story, and he was like, "Why did you do that? Why did you do that? There is a bus to go up to the mountain." And I was like, "Well, I don't really know why I did that. in my culture, we normally go hiking. It doesn't matter really the conditions. We go hiking to enjoy nature, and we just do that. But I didn't consider that if the situation was actually really bad, I could have not done it. And it came to my mind this thing of when we don't know how to what to answer to why we do something, that is because it's part of our culture. Like I was doing that because that is something that in my culture is like the obvious thing, like of course. And I didn't question where did it come from. And I guess that what related to what you were saying is the importance of asking or questioning our own things, like the things that we do in our culture and the things that come from the outside, and trying to expand our horizons, having those conversations with different people, and then being empowered to say, okay, this doesn't make any sense. I don't want to do that, even though it comes from my culture, but I would like to change this. Or the opposite, these things come from the outside. I don't agree with, I would like to do this other thing instead. So yeah, I guess that the importance there is to being empowered to take to question and take control of those decisions and define who you want to be in that global entity that it's the world.
Yeah.
Really long story to say just something super easy, but I didn't find an easier way to explain it.
I think that Michelle just dropped from the call, but I think we were reaching an end as well because we have had such a deep conversation today about lots of important topics like our responsibility to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, about gender equality, about local versus global citizenship. Yeah, it has been a really deep one. And it has been great to connect with her after I've seen her in a couple of key events about creativity and problem solving of youth for global challenges in education. So let's see if she can make it. Otherwise, maybe we can close it here, and I'll send her, and we'll send her a message to thank her for her contribution today. Thank you, everyone that followed us today. If you haven't done already, you can follow our profiles so that you know about upcoming webinars. Next week, we'll be talking with Tanya Moloney from Australia about storytelling and nature and how they can be a key part of education.
Okay, I think that she cannot join back.
Okay, so let's do it here then.
Thank you very much, everyone, and I hope you have a nice day. And thank you very much, Michelle. Okay, it's saying there's a message. Kikao cannot join. So thank you very much, Michelle, and we'll keep in contact.
Yes.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day.